What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. How you guys doing today? And I feel like talking a little bit more about the DK Metcalf contract because a little bit ago we got full details on the thing, and it's a little slow right now. You can't pump out training camp updates all the time. So I want to meditate on this contract a little bit and talk about why I think it's such a good contract, not only for him, but for the team. I think this is a contract that both sides can be very happy with. So most of this stuff we already know, but I'm going to go over it again anyway. 3 years, 72 million on top of the 1 year and approximately 4 million he had left. So 4 years, 76 million. 31 million guaranteed at signing. Basically 58.2 guaranteed. It's very unlikely he doesn't see at least 58.2 million with this contract. So that's the stuff that we already had a good feel of. You also have the cap hits, which again, this is mostly stuff that people were familiar with from when the contract was signed. About 8.8 million this year, 13.7 the next year, 24.5 the following year, and 2025, the final year, would be just shy of 30 million. So I think we all were pretty familiar with that. If you're keeping up on this was stuff that was known when the contract was released. But Spotrac has chimed in with the dead cap details so we can get some idea of when we can at least consider moving Metcalf without incurring a massive financial punishment. So the first 2 years, there's no way, and that shouldn't even be a consideration at this point. Metcalf is still young, still very productive. It's very unlikely that he doesn't play at the very least well and doesn't live up to this contract, at least mostly. 2024 is when you can finally at least save some money by either releasing him or trading him, but it's not significant, so there's no way that he leaves the Seahawks before 2024 either, or during 2024, I should say. There is one fiscal out to this contract. It is 2025. So, like I said, the cap hit is just under 30 million. If you release him or trade him, the dead cap hit is going to be 11.5. So you are looking at significant savings potentially, right? That is 18 million saved against the cap. But you are still looking at a significant dead cap hit. 11.5 million. Teams take that on sometimes, but you don't want to. So that's the first layer of this. Just the technical details. There is an out after the first 3 years, but it's not an out that you necessarily want to be taking. It's still a significant dead cap hit. So odds are good that Metcalf is going to continue to be a Seahawk throughout the duration of this contract, but let's talk about the timing here. Let's talk about how this is timed out to work really well for the Seahawks. So 2022, we're going with Geno Smith and Drew Lock, probably. I don't think anyone else is going to get involved. Maybe later, we'll see, but probably not. So next year, odds are good we draft a quarterback, and that quarterback is now the guy. 2023, his rookie year, we start finding out about him. 2024, second year. Now, if you look at the recent history of quarterbacks that get taken in the first round, most of them start early. A lot of them start day one. The ones that don't typically begin starting later in year one. You're not seeing very many quarterbacks sit for a year and then go in there. The days of Carson Palmer are over for the most part. So whoever you get, you're going to get 2023 to get a good look at them in all likelihood. And 2024, if he's not a full-time starter by then, something probably went terribly, terribly wrong. But realistically, you are looking at getting 2 full years with him with Metcalf. And at the same time, I want to draw attention to the Tyler Lockett extension that we signed, or he signed last year, where you have the contract expiring at the same same year. You have the contract expiring going into 2026. So Metcalf and Lockett both have contracts that expire in the same offseason. And Lockett is in a similar spot. There is no point in releasing him now. There's going to be no point in releasing him next year. You can consider releasing him in 2024's offseason and saving a little less than $10 million, but you're talking about $14 million dead. So unless he really has fallen off as a player and really doesn't provide much value, you're not going to want to do that. So assuming Lockett maintains some level of productivity, you are going to be looking at going into 2024, that second year for quarterback X, with Lockett and Metcalf as his number one and number two receivers. Lockett at this point is going to be 32, getting older, but not yet at the point where you expect him to completely fall apart. So he'll have that. And at that point, you should have a pretty good idea of what this quarterback is and what these receivers are in regards to him. And that's why I really like the way we've done this. So after the second year, now Lockett's probably going to be fine. Lockett's going to be entering a year where he's going to have a cap hit of about $24 million. He'll be 33. Honestly, Lockett will probably at this point feel like he's lucky if he stays on the team with this contract, right? Like if 33-year-old Tyler Lockett is here making $24 million against the cap when you can release him and have it only $7 million, then honestly he would probably feel pretty fortunate about that. And I don't know if it's going to happen. It depends on what Lockett does. I've maintained for a while that Lockett is a guy who won't be great into like his mid to late 30s, but we'll see. He is showing to a certain extent that he is capable of playing well with non-Russell Wilson quarterbacks based off what we're hearing in camp so far and to a certain extent what we saw from him last year. But we're going to have to see more evidence of it. So Lockett's whatever, basically, at this point. We might extend him on a much smaller contract, or we might release him going into 2025. But at that point, it'll probably be whatever. Lockett is not necessarily a guy who's going to make a fuss about being in the last year of his contract. Now, we know Metcalf could. Metcalf, at this point, will be about to turn 28. So he's still going to be in his prime. He's probably going to have put up several good seasons in a row. He is certainly capable of having 1,200-yard seasons, and he will be heading into a season where he's about to turn 28, one of the best receivers in the league in all likelihood. He's probably going to go, hey, I want long-term security. I don't want to play on the last year of my deal. I need a new deal, or you need to trade me, or you need to let me go, or you need to do something. Metcalf may be in the position to do that. So by this point, you should have a pretty good idea of whether or not QBX is your guy. Will Levis, KJ Jefferson, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, whoever it is that you like. You will have seen them for 2 years. You're going to have a pretty decent idea at this point. And you can now make a decision. Let's say that QB looks awesome those first 2 years. Takes you to good places, puts up good numbers, performs. Maybe it takes you on some deep playoff runs. You can say, okay, we are a year away from having to extend him. And the extension at that point for a top young quarterback, it might be 60, 65 million a year. That's the way things are going right now, right? Look what Kyler got. So if QBX that you draft next year performs better than Kyler and leads you to more success than Kyler led his team, he's definitely going to want more. And with the way things are going, don't be surprised if it's like 60 million a year. So if you are prepping for that, then you can look at this Lockett situation, you can look at this Metcalf situation, and now you have options because both guys are going to be entering the final years of their contracts. Like, let's say the quarterback is awesome, but Metcalf is like his Jerry Rice. Like, those two guys have such a good rapport. QBX to Metcalf is like the new Montana to Rice. And then you're like, we got to keep Metcalf. I know it's going to hurt. I know it's going to be a lot of money invested into a QB and receiver. I know it's not fun, but we have to do it. then you can at that point say, okay, we're going to recommit to Metcalf for another big contract. And at that point, you could be looking at a $35 to $40 million per year average for a top receiver. Or maybe you get to that point and you're like, QBX is really, really good, but we're not going to be able to commit to Metcalf and QBX without crippling the rest of our team. And we feel like QBX is going to be able to stand on his own two legs without Metcalf. So then you can go to Metcalf and say, we're not going to extend you. We can't do it. You can either play the last year of your deal. If you want to do this the hard way, you can hold out. We can trade you for something really good because at that point he'll still be young. The dead cap hit won't be that bad because it'll be the last year of his deal. That's the difference between having 2 years left on his deal at that point versus 1. You can actually trade him and it doesn't kill you. And you can play that game. And you have the ability to move on. Just like you're going to have the ability to move on from Lockett. Because he will be due only $7 million if let go and $24 million if kept. So let's say QBX and Lockett develop a super awesome relationship and Lockett is still kicking butt when he's 33, 32. You could extend him. Probably a little less money than this contract because he'll be older, but you can make that determination because you will have seen 2 years of QBX with these receivers. So the opposite is also true, by the way. You could get to this point and be like, oh, wow, we missed on QBX. He's bad. He's not going to be the guy. We're not extending him after 2025. You can say, hey, let's move Lockett and move Metcalf. We don't have a quarterback for them anyway. Or you could say, well, we're not going to spend big money on a quarterback. We're just going to draft another one next year or maybe the year after because this guy doesn't look like he's it. Now we can afford to keep big, pricey receivers like Metcalf. So that's what I like about this deal after analyzing it, especially next to this Lockett deal. It affords us flexibility to hit on our next quarterback or miss on our next quarterback or commit to spending massive amounts of money on the offense or deciding we're not going to splurge on offense after having an expensive quarterback or whatever. This determination on QBX, whoever it ends up being, is going to take a little bit of time, and these contracts give us that time. So I think that's probably the most appealing thing about this deal in tandem with the Lockett deal. Obviously, in 3 years, things could change completely. Metcalf could end up being a big disappointment and never getting back to where he was in 2020. Lockett could end up being the next Jerry Rice and play great into his 40s. Like, we don't know where we're going to be, but that's kind of the thing. Wherever we end up being in a few years with whoever the next quarterback is, we will be able to afford to make a multitude of decisions on players like DK Metcalf because of the way the contract is laid out. So let me know what you guys think about it. Let me know what you guys have to say about it. I just think that's a great thing because I don't want to assume that we're going to hit on the next quarterback, but I also don't want to assume we're going to miss. I want to give us options. And the way this has been done, we have a lot of options. We can play a game of chicken with Metcalf in 2025, maybe try to get him on board with the idea of give us 1 more year on this contract, and then next year, maybe we just let you walk, maybe we tag and trade you. We're going to let you go somewhere else and get your money, but we can't extend you because of the quarterback. We could play a similar game with Lockett, try to see if he wants to finish his career here. There are options, and I think that's about the best thing you could ask for right now when we don't know exactly where this ship is headed. So I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. More stuff on Twitch later today. Going to do more YouTube streams in the coming days to talk about this upcoming preseason game. And yeah, it's a good contract, guys. A lot of things you can do with it. Go Hawks.